We will now move on to another lively session and another exciting session for you. I promised you there's going to be a lot of excitement today, and we get into the next segment. We are getting into the evening segment now. We're starting off with the gaming panel, where the topic is gaming industry in India, visions for the future. And let me take this opportunity to introduce the panelists and the moderator. Our first panelist will be Mr. Pavan Nanda, who's the CEO and co-founder of Winzo, India's largest vernacular social gaming platform. Mr. Pavan Nanda is a second-time entrepreneur, forayed into the world of startups with his first venture, Zostel and Zero Rooms, a Tiger Global-backed aggregator model, where Zostel is now the Asia's largest chain of backpackers hostels. Mr. Nanda successfully entered the budget hotel aggregation segment early on, attracted venture capital funding from marquee investors, and grew operations exponentially in a short span. Mr. Nanda's corporate stint before entrepreneurship was with Bain & Company, Abbott Labs, and Bank of America, Global Trading Desk. He is an engineering graduate from NSIT in 2009 and completed his MBA from IIM Calcutta in 2014. Pavan's entrepreneurial bug led him to also mentor a bunch of startups in India and Malaysia. Given his love for constantly innovating and his inherent interest in consumer tech, and given the fact that he's an avid gamer himself, he realized how even less expensive smartphones are offering ample features to run good games. He sensed an opportunity in gaming, driven by improving mobile connectivity and declining data costs in the country. So Mr. Nanda believes that gaming will be the next big thing in India for various reasons. He gathered monetization to a huge challenge for the gaming industry, especially since advertisements don't fetch substantive returns. He decided to solve the monetization issue and founded Winzo Games in 2018 with former colleague Mr. Shaumya Singh Rathore. He truly believes that the next big company emerging from India with capabilities of capturing the global grid will be from the gaming industry. Recognizing his contribution, Pavan was awarded the Disruptor of the Year award by the business world in 2021. Winzo was recognized as the Startup of the Year in 2020 by Entrepreneur India. We warmly welcome you, Mr. Pavan Nanda. And our next panelist will be Ms. Namrata Swamy, who is the General Manager India for Mobile Premier League. In this role, Ms. Namrata oversees the entire India operations of esports platform. She is responsible for steering initiatives to drive sustainable business growth in the country and work towards the company's vision to become the global hub for esports and gaming. Ms. Namrata has a proven track record of driving revenue and growth transformation for fast-growing consumer tech and CPG companies. Before joining MPL, she served as the associate partner at McKinsey & Company in Bangalore, India. She holds a PGDM from IIM Bangalore and a Bachelor of Engineering degree in Electronics and Communication from PES Institute of Technology. We warmly welcome you, Ms. Namrata Swamy. Our next panelist will be Mr. Nitin Goyal, who is the Country Manager, Indian Subcontinent for Gameloft. Mr. Nitin Goyal is a mobile gaming veteran with 16 plus years of experience in digital media and mobile gaming, with a strong focus on product marketing and monetization to build sustainable business from scratch in India. Mr. Goyal brings in perspective from the international publisher space, having worked for renowned players like EA and Gameloft over the last decade. Mr. Nitin has seen the evolution of mobile gaming from close quarters and the disruptions that it went across over the last decade, leading into massive growth. We warmly welcome you, Mr. Nitin Goyal, sir. And finally, our chairperson and moderator for the session is going to be Mr. Raghav Anand, who is the segment leader, Digital Media and Convergence for Africa, India, and Middle East from Ernst & Young LLP. Mr. Raghav Anand is one of the leading voices in digital media and a global consulting leader. He advises Fortune 100 clients and big tech companies in charting their digital growth strategies. In his career spanning over 20 years, he has worked across 4 continents, leading multicultural and multidisciplinary teams. He has played a pivotal role in developing strategies, powering market expansion, promoting diversification, and enabling M&A across digital platforms and emerging tech businesses. Mr. Anand currently leads the digital and media convergence domain for Ernst & Young across AIM markets. We warmly welcome you, Mr. Raghav Anand. And we will be starting the gaming panel, which is on gaming industry in India, visions for the future. Over to you, Mr. Raghavanand, to take it forward.
Right. Thank you, Rakhi. And this is a wonderful evening. And actually, my kudos to you and the ABP team for setting up such a wonderful topic on gaming, which is already the future. But to gaze on the visions of the future for gaming is particularly exciting because gaming, again, is very close to my heart. We spent 2 decades setting up a lot of gaming functions here in mobile gaming, in console, and so on and so forth. And also very glad to be among friends. Nitin is here. Namrata, Pavan, great to sort of meet up and be part of this panel. So welcome everybody, and I hope we will have a great next 45 minutes to an hour to discussing what could be perhaps the beyond the visions of the future, maybe the visions of what's going to happen on the gaming front at all. So just to set the context for the viewers and other people in here, I mean, gaming, of course, needs no introduction. It is one of, if you look at digital as a whole, and this conference has been about that, and you peg all the segments in terms of their growth, gaming really tops the charts. Depending on which geography you're looking at, it is growing between 18 to 40% on different aspects of gaming. So that in itself shows that this is something that is really propelling the future, and globally something that is beyond $200 billion. And for the uninitiated, it's bigger than Hollywood and music, all of that put together. And even in India, it has crossed 20,000 crores. And depending on which segment you look at, there are wonderful things happening on gaming, which is why I'm really happy to have a panel which has most of the perspectives. There is somebody who's leading one of the leading multi-platform gaming companies and a fantasy sports company. There are others who are one of the top publishers across the globe, and also people who are leading the real money business. So really excited, guys, to be discussing this. But to kick off, I think probably it augurs well to sort of start out by asking, a sector which is seeing that kind of a growth propelled, especially in the last 3 years, by various things like real money gaming, fantasy, and so on and so forth, and esports. What do you think is driving this? What are the key factors? Is it just the old digital growth about bandwidth and access? It is about content coming in? Is it about money being made? What are the factors that are starting out? Probably if I can have Namrata have you start out with some of your thoughts, and probably then I'll invite Nitin and Pawan to share their perspectives as well.
Got it. Thanks, Raghav, for that. Definitely a very, very exciting space, right? With the kind of growth that's seen globally and of course in India as well. And I think it's hard to really call out one or two factors. I'm sure it's a multitude of things that are all coming together to make this growth happen. Maybe I will chart out a few, and of course Nitin, Pawan will definitely add a few more to this list, right? I think the first couple of them are definitely more the basic ones that you were alluding to when you spoke about mobile and data, etc. Right? So I think overall, when we look at the growth that's coming within gaming, I think mobile gaming, even globally today, accounts for more than 50% of the growth that's coming. And in a country like India, about 90% of the overall gaming is happening on mobile today. So I think mobile and just access to smartphones, access to data, arrival of 4G technology, and of course, I think in future bringing in 5G, definitely that's sort of been the foundation stone that is really making gaming really accessible to all. When it started out probably a decades back, it was more about someone having access to a high-end computer or console that could really play those high-quality games, right? But I think with the evolution of technology, it's really moved into saying, how can we bring all of this on mobile, which just makes it much more easy for users to consume and be a part of throughout their day and journey, right? Because you don't need to be in front of something. You could be traveling, you could be anywhere else, but still have access to gaming. That's, I think, number one. Second is definitely in terms of the formats and the content types that are evolving, right? Casual, hyper casual has emerged as a significant growth area over the last couple of years. And that's actually attracted in audiences and really widened the consumer segment for an industry like gaming. And today, if you look at the typical consumer segments that involve in gaming, it's no more the 18 to 30-year-olds, right? I think that the boundaries of ages are really fading, and you can definitely see users even 60 plus, 45 plus being significant part of this gaming audience. And I think the variety in terms of the kind of games, the content formats that are coming in has, of course, definitely attracted a larger group of people to get involved in gaming itself. And I think the third piece that's also added to the mix is, especially in the last couple of years with the pandemic hitting, gaming is not just a means of entertainment, it's become an avenue for social and connectivity between people, right? So I think be it the formats of multiplayer, be it formats of where you could invite, play with your friends, actually feel that connection and bonding with the other people as well. I think it's sort of servicing a need just beyond entertainment. I think that's again been another lever that's propelled the growth on gaming itself.
Fabulous. Thanks for that. I think the fantastic opening comments. You sort of swept across and touched many points, the hardware in terms of the smartphone, the content coming in, and also a very, very important point on the basic social need for connectivity and engagement, which gaming is giving in a pandemic world. So really great. Thanks for that, Namrata. Pawan, probably on to you then. How do you see that? I mean, is that those are definitely the reasons. Beyond that, people are also making tons of money on gaming, isn't it? And that's also triggering the entire real money space, if I'm not wrong.
Yeah, I mean, not just real money, right? Firstly, guys, thank you so much for having me here. I think gaming per se is an activity, is a fairly irreversible mechanism, right? I think once, of course, smartphone hardware, all these things led people to try out gaming again, or probably for the first time, through their smartphones now. But once people started doing that, they just spaced out that 45 minutes to an hour every day, and it's 50 crore of us who do that on a daily basis. And that really creates a very massive, voracious appetite for that consumption, right? And what that does is that really creates a very massive window for different kind of formats, different kind of platforms, titles to really go ahead and fill that void, right? Along with that, another interesting thing that has happened here is that monetization is now started getting solved, right? Yeah. Of course, payment infra has been one of the interesting things that have happened. UPI has done wonders. And also the way sachet, or you can say miniaturized version of monetization is now started playing into effect, right? Personally, at Winzo, we are very strong believers. We started off with subscriptions at one point of time. I remember in 2017, our earlier, the first beta product had 49 rupees of subscription, right? And we could see that people were not even comfortable paying 49, 50 bucks. So we had to really tone it down. Currently, people can start playing their gaming journey from as low as 2 rupees. And that makes a lot of sense because people really want to have that dial in their hand. And I think that is, again, an important thing because solving for monetization has always been a challenge in the Indian space, right? But now once that piece is being solved, that has suddenly led to a lot of companies innovate. That obviously, once monetization is solved, you can invest a lot of dollars behind marketing, behind brand spend, behind getting better titles. And I think that flywheel is now started working, which is very important for any ecosystem, right? So now there is a positive flywheel where there is a demand, and that demand is also paid demand where people are interested in payments, people are interested in paying for their content. And then there is, of course, a very massive supply, both homegrown as well as international, which is creating beautiful businesses. Most of these businesses are great LTV CAC positive kind of businesses. And all in all, I think with the kind of population that we have, that flywheel is only growing every passing year, every passing quarter. So that's really the phenomena that's happening.
Right. So it's a juggernaut which keeps on, wheeling. You talked about 300 million going to 500 million, where the video ecosystem stands at 420, 450, but the gaming ecosystem is beyond 500 million. and that's churning money, and the money is getting reinvested, and that's growing the business in terms of the overall content. So fantastic. And that is a good point to bring you in, Nitin, because you guys lead an entire gaming, globally in terms of publishing, in terms of content, mobile and beyond. And when all of this is happening, the kind of content that comes in, the kind of games, genres that happen from a publishing point of view, how do you see it?
Thanks, Raghav. Yeah, but I think from the publishing standpoint, when we look at it, right, so from the very beginning, from the Gameloft perspective, right, so it's like almost like 2 decades for us, like so when we started off, right, and ever since then, right, so we had a very firm belief, right, so the mobile is the one which is the next growth story, and that's what we are seeing 2 decades later now. We have always believed on one aspect, right, so that everybody is a gamer, and I always talk about it, like, so we always believe, right, so from a 3-year-old kid going up to like the 70-year-old man, everybody does play game. And you have the multitude of genres which are wherein you can differentiate between the gamer segments. And basically that's what we have been doing, right? So on our side, right, so we are one of the few global companies which has games across the genres that we have been working on. We have multitude of studios across the globe, wherein we are churning out quality games across all the genres. And we have seen success across them, right? So I would say, right, so if I were to say from the casual segment, right, so Minions is one of the biggest IPs for us. It's wherein we have close to like over 1 billion installs still date, right? And then you go to the arcade racing, wherein we have S4, which as an IP has also generated over 1 billion installs still date, right? And it still continues to be a very strong IP for us. And then we have the strategy games, and you have the RPG and the action titles, and all across we have been seeing a significant traction. So basically, for us, as a publisher, as a developer and a publisher, we view it as a broader universe of audience, and each segment is significant enough. The only difference is like the monetization means across segments vary. And you need to be conscious about that fact and build your games accordingly. I think there is a lot of transition, a lot of disruption which has happened in the gaming space over the last decade or so on the monetization front, but that's something which has really propelled the space from virtually nowhere to $100 billion industry today, right? So crossing over the combined business across the console and the PC. And that's where I say, it's not just about the product which makes a difference, right? It's about having the right enablers in place for the product, right? So if I were to compare, like, so there's no comparison between the console and the PC games. And if you look from the global big publishers' standpoint, they were always focused on the console and the PC, right? And mobile was not something that they wanted to touch upon. But off late, right? So we have been seeing that the kind of success that the COD Mobile has generated, and it's like, for everyone to see the kind of business it has been able to generate for them vis-a-vis what they have been doing over the console for that particular IP, right? So the mobile has generated much bigger business than the console, right? So yeah, this is something that we have to be conscious as an overall industry where the potential lies. And I think that's as just an opening remark, I see some disruptions happening across on the console and PC gaming as well going forward. Which we can talk in the subsequent period.
Right. So I think now that rounds up, because I mean, you also spoke about how, and your comments are really significant, Nitin, because we've discussed this in the past. We all go back a few decades, a couple of decades back when I was setting up the NASCOM committee and the FICCI animation gaming. The global publishers were really not caring too much about India, right? And like you said, it's because it was console, it was PC, and it was not selling here. There are a lot of piracy happening, and so on and so forth. But now this mobile bit going up, and also, like Pawan said, the monetization falling into place. There is a lot of focus happening, and what happened on the PUBG side, COD side, Clash of Clans, and there is so many examples there. No, but that's it. This is when we get to the next level of this discussion, and like we get to the next level of gaming, we are supposed to be looking at the visions of the future, right? So why don't we just looking back on looking ahead on a few things. To start out with, probably on the platform and the genres, really. What do you think is going to propel the future? I mean, we all spoke about mobile leading it, and with 5G coming, it's always going to keep leading that market. There are going to be low-cost smartphones, thanks to a lot of people, Google and beyond. So that's going to propel this market in the future. But what about the other parts of more intense gaming? Is connected TV going to make an impact? Is the fiber rollout going to make an impact? And even 5G coming in, it's also going to make the PC and the desktop connectivity much better. So Pawan, in terms of platforms and genres, and what do you see, how do you see this playing out in the next 5 years in terms of the future?
Okay, so all disclaimers, we are all in for mobile, right? We don't even follow what's happening with connected TVs or consoles or even PC gaming. So I'm probably not the best person to comment on that bit. Perhaps maybe Nitin is. But definitely I can tell you from a futuristic perspective, right? I think, see, we are talking about 12 billion mobile games getting downloaded every year, right? So where it's a land where there is a very successful Free Fire, and then there is even a bigger hit like BGMI, right? And both of them are thriving together. So I'm just talking about first-person shooting as a format, right? There are many different formats. I mean, across genres, across titles, mid-core, casual, hyper-casual, multiplayer hyper-casual, anything and everything that's a bit social in nature, like Namrata pointed out. I think social is definitely going to drive how games will be getting created from here on. And definitely something which is very personalized, which is very localized, right? Because we've all seen what Ludo King had done in the past, right? 1 year. So again, something where Indian context is picked up, added a layer of social to it, has a tremendous opportunity going forward, right? That I would say purely from a development standpoint. Another interesting thing is, and it's more of a finding through researches itself, any gaming ecosystem, if you see even China, right, 20 years back, majority of the games that were really popular in China were actually not made in China. They were made in Korea, right? And then, of course, the likes of Tencent and all other popular game developers in China, decided to start churning titles. And eventually now China is where it is today, right? The same is going to happen here in India. I think one of the important things here is that there'll be a lot more focus on homegrown titles, inbound titles, where people will create massive blockbuster titles here in India. The contribution, probably if you look at Google Play Store now, I would say 10% of the domestic developers would be contributing to the engagement, 90% of it is international. That shift, there's going to be a tectonic shift in terms of contribution from the domestic game developers there, right? That is again an important trend that one would foresee. Another interesting thing would be purely from I think the way monetization is going to happen, right? So there is right now, if you see, there are in-app purchases that are happening. They're like, if you see Free Fire, PUBG, of course, they're clocking hundreds of millions of dollars out of India. There is, of course, RMG, or traditional RMG, like poker, rummy, fantasy as a platform. Then there are, you can say RMG as a subset, where there is this microtransaction-led RMG-based platforms. Winzo could be one of them. And then, of course, we all know what is happening in some of these other developing countries like Axie Infinity, where people are actually trying to, earn their livings by playing games and, earning certain NFTs or coins that they can go ahead and sell at a higher price. So I think that particular wave is also picking up really strong in India, right? And if you're talking about next 4 to 5 years of horizon, now I personally feel that should also be a good fillip to the overall revenues of the country, right? I mean, we're talking about, like I mentioned, right, 12 billion mobile game downloads in India. The second highest mobile game downloads is in US, which is 5 billion, right? We are like 2.5x of second position. If you talk about revenue numbers, US gaming market is at $50 billion, maybe more than that. India is still like, what, $1.5–2 billion at max. So there is a very massive gap, right? I see this number is going to at least grow 5x, maybe even more than that, maybe 10x, right? Over the next 4 to 5 years. That's how I think of it.
Right, and I think that's where the microtransactions which you guys are pushing was going to make a big difference, right? I mean, the net is wide, but
The power of numbers. That's what
yes,
we have.
exactly. It does. But you also made another significant point in terms of the fact that, mobile developers are homegrown. So, I mean, we've had mobile development companies for ages. They've been third-party outsourcing companies, testing companies, porting companies, and all of that, largely doing third-party work, but not original IP, because original IP was difficult to sort of get it in and monetize. But now, like you're rightly saying, on the fantasy space, on the real money space, on even just quizzing space, there's a lot of guys coming up and doing stuff, because there is monetization not after 5 million and 10 million people, but immediately around the corner from that point of view. So that's significant. How's that going to change, Nitin, with the other thing, which in fact you had pointed out long back, which is the entire cloud gaming and subscription gaming happening? I thought that was going to be a big thing, even for the globe and for India. Globally, we have now, even the biggest of games, the guys are saying, don't pay, 4,000 rupees per game, just pay $4 and you have access to 10,000 games as a subscription from that point of view. People like Netflix are trying to get into gaming subscriptions. That's going to change the needle, right? How do you see that playing out in the future?
Absolutely right. So I think that there is a massive growth which is going to come across. It is this disruption which is out there in the making. And I was having one meeting yesterday, and wherein one of the points that I've actually raised about is we are going to see the Netflix of gaming coming across in the current decade. And this is where I think the cloud gaming is going to make a significant impact. The kind of console and the PC gaming which has been stagnant for long since that we have been seeing would get completely disrupted over the current decade with the launch of the cloud gaming. All the enablers I think are falling in place. It's a similar kind of thing that we had a decade back with mobile, which was struggling and nobody knew what to do on the mobile space. And then you had all the enablers falling in place globally with respect to mobile gaming. And today we see where it is, right? Console and PC gaming is an aspirational kind of gaming, right? So which is where the people want to actually have that kind of immersive experience for themselves as they eventually evolve as a gamer. But there are a lot of barriers which exist in the industry from the Indian market, especially. And I always believe Indian market is more of a value conscious consumer. It's not a price sensitive consumer in the market, right? So, and that's been very much visible through the kind of growth we have seen in the OTT space over the last 2-3 years. That myth has completely been busted with the kind of growth that has come across in the OTT space. If we are able to bring in that kind of value proposition across for the consumers, and that's very much possible with the cloud gaming. As I said, it's a $4 or $5 kind of price point. If you make it like as sweet as that, when you have like tons of games which are there on the console and PC being available to you to play, and in a device agnostic environment, right? So you don't need to spend a penny in terms of buying a particular hardware. Addresses your maneuverability restrictions which are there on the console and the PC, and is unable to, it does enable you to actually start on one device and then you resume on another device as you are on the move. Does make a lot of great proposition as I see coming across in future. And I think, right, so the console and the PC gaming space should see a brighter future. On our side, yes, we are trying few things. So we have launched free-to-play on console with Xbox, and that's something which is a new phenomenon, right? So on console, there are very limited titles which are free-to-play, and we are among the top 5 free-to-play games on console with S4 9. And similarly, right, so with Apple Arcade, right, so we have been very strongly supporting Apple Arcade to that particular initiative, and we have seen significant growth coming across in that space, and that's contributing significant share of the total revenue of Gameloft today and that has happened over the last 2 years for us. I think both subscription on the monetization front, I would say, and secondly, with this, the cloud gaming is going to make a significant impact in the industry in the coming decade.
Right. And that's something I'm particularly keen to see play out, because if once you do subscription, like in OTT, you need to have, thousands of games. And that's why, like Pawan said, you want some of the local developers and the games to also come in. The same way the OTT started doing the local website business, and that there needs to be, previously you need hardly 5 movies and some, some serials out there. But today you need thousands of movies, and the content market has exploded. And the same thing could probably happen in the gaming space once you have subscription and cloud gaming. The affordability is higher, and that's going to be fantastic. But the other thing that is sweeping the town is also esports, right, Namrata? I mean, here are people, Pawan talked about people playing online and earning money, but this is a completely different ball game altogether, where people, and he might, I was speaking to somebody who was 14 or 15, he might not know Virat or Sachin, but he knows the Jesse and the Jonathan and the esports players from that point of view. So that is exciting, because I earn money, I compete, and the oldest players are 18, right? So how do you see that space building out?
No, definitely, right? I think along with, of course, the various genres of games evolving, I think the whole piece of saying, how can you sort of stream some of this content? How can you compete at a real global level to say, how do I get that kind of recognition, and sort of building those set of fans or spectators around this whole piece. I think that's been another piece that's picked up over the last year, but I think there is a lot more opportunity on that front. I think today, again, esports, if you just look at as a share of the overall gaming market, is very, very minuscule for a country like India. But I think that's something, at least over the last year and a half, we're seeing picking up a lot of traction. A lot more people are going through that loop of saying, hey, I want to pick up gaming. I've started playing. Now I'm at a level where I feel I'm confident I can compete somewhere. So starting with some sort of tournaments, starting with the smaller ones, and then saying, hey, probably I could do better. I could really look at this for recognition, right? I think that then takes them to the next level of saying, hey, there is so much out there. If you even take simple games like an 8-ball pool, right? The champions on that, there are people who have sort of just mastered the skills needed to do well in that. And I think there are people who are streaming their games on that, building viewers, spectators, fans on top of it, which is really just going out there, bringing in many more people interested to come in and watch this whole phenomenon happening, right? And I think going forward, what we see is it's an area which is going to explode, probably 10-20x growth over the next few years, again enabled by some of the same foundation pillars that we spoke about for gaming, right? You could do all of this on mobile. Your mobiles are well equipped today to really shoot some of these videos, stream these, put these out there, really make it easy and simple for people to get their content out there, get more people to sort of watch this and become followers and fans, right? So I think all of those pieces will definitely enable this. And I think second, like sports, esports is sort of becoming mainstream. It's, of course, globally, it's very accepted and people really compete for esports championships the same way as normal sports. But I think even in India, we are seeing that trend. There is a lot of investment going into esports development by government, by private entities, which is really helping people understand and pick this up as another alternative to really say, how can I excel in this?
Right. And that is interesting, because there are two things again which you said, which is very interesting. One is, it's no longer about I playing; it's also about I streaming and getting the viewers and becoming known from that point of view. And the other thing which is also interesting is that now we are going to be in a world where the world is flat. I can compete in any sport, any esport across the globe, and so on and so forth. Physical esports, where you do it in a stadium and you do it, did take a bit of a hit, but I see Southeast Asia and India in particular leading a lot on the mobile gaming front, right? And what happened to mobile on the PUBG is itself a case study there. So really that congruence is what you're pointing out to, Namrata, and I think that makes a lot of sense in how this will go. Now, this means that in the future, I mean, the future is, I don't know, you can even call it the future, because all of that is starting to happen. And in gaming parlance, it happens at the speed of light, right? Within a few days, you're seeing new things popping out. But I thought, just to make the next session a bit more interesting, what I would probably do is bounce off some innovations which I have seen in the market, and please feel free to also bring up some of the innovations that you've seen in the market. But I wanted to probably pick up one or two cases and get reflections from any of you for that matter, and feel free to jump in. And I'll probably go into innovations in each of those hardware, into the content, and so on and so forth. One of the interesting things I came across just about a couple of months back is this entire bit about the cloud hardware, right? There are services out there, and when I was growing up, I got this Office PC. I was very excited, long back, because I was a gamer. I logged in, tried to play my favorite games, and then I realized it doesn't have a graphics card, right? And you can look at my the kind of disappointment I went through, because I had a brand new laptop, but doesn't have a graphics card. I can't play games with it. All I can do is work, right? But today, there are services which say that forget your mobile or your computer. We're just going to use your screen, hook onto my cloud hardware service for 200 or 300 rupees, and I'm going to give you the entire GPU power and graphics and everything. So you can probably install and play the highest graphics games at 200, 300 rupees without even worrying for the 2 lakh to 5 lakh that you will spend on the computer and the hardware. I thought that's going to really open up access to gaming and to the kind of games that you will play in this market. How do you see something like that reflecting here and also in the global market? Any one of you, for that matter.
I can take it, Raghav. So basically, I think these are the kind of innovations which are needed, right? So basically, just to identify, right, so what are the kind of barriers which exist and how we can actually break into those barriers. And this is a great example that you have actually enumerated over here, right? So definitely, it's going to make a significant impact, right? So not just limited to the Indian market, but from the global market perspective. If we are able to actually break into those kind of restrictions which exist in terms of procuring a significantly costly hardware on my side before I can actually engage into something which is more of my entertainment medium, you won't see many people who would be in a position to actually do that, right? So, but if you are able to actually, if you are enabling him to have that kind of experience without having that kind of investment, you would see people actually putting in that kind of small money into it and having that kind of experience, which can actually enable a completely new segment, which is basically for them, it's an aspirational gaming experience that they are looking forward to, which they are not able to have being made available through these kind of innovations which come across.
Yeah, just to add, and I might have a very counter sort of a view, because I believe it's an open floor here.
We are media people. I'm waiting for some controversy. These discussions can't happen without a counter view. Go ahead, Pawan. Yeah,
no. So I feel that I mean, if you really look at it, right? I mean, if you see the kind of devices that are coming in, you can really buy, at least as far as mobile gaming goes, right? You can really buy a nice 12 to 15,000 rupees smartphone, and it can run possibly any great game that's required there, right? So at least mobile has solved that experience to a very large extent, right? That is one part that I want to mention here. So you don't really, I mean, unless of course we are talking about those bunch of folks specifically in tier 1 who want to do PC gaming, very, very high end kind of experience, probably with a VR headset. I'm not talking about them, but if you look at it outside that, then the kind of devices that are coming in these days that pretty much enable you to play any kind of game that you like. That's one. The second point I want to highlight here is that if you see from an engagement standpoint, right, on the Google Play Store also, I think 99% of the engagement has happened by the top 500 titles that are there on the Google Play Store, right? Rest, it's a really long tail, right? So if the service is such that, hey, you can pay 200, 250 bucks or whatever that number is, and you get those content in, those top 500 titles, really exclusive creme de creme titles, only then it will make sense, right? Because people are really sticking to those handful of titles even now. And the other part is that majority of the monetization, let's say if you talk about in-app purchases as well, is again happening, I think the top 10 in gaming, the top 10 top grossing apps are probably contributing to 95% of the in-app purchases, right? Again, I don't see those kind of titles getting into this this subscription pack kind of a model, because I don't know those kind of partnerships happening anytime soon. So I think all in all, of course, I see a lot of these guys are trying to push cloud gaming. I see, of course, there's xCloud, there's a bunch of others as well who are doing it. But really, unless you really go ahead, spend a lot of marketing dollars, educate people, come up with a very strong use case, I think I personally am not very, very bullish on the way. Of course, it's a great attempt, but yeah, let's see how it goes.
No, yeah, I think that's also a good point, because if I am, and you're talking about a particular segment, Pawan, and which is correct. If I'm a mass gamer,
I'm talking about the 95% people.
Yeah, the 95% people. I have in hardware, which is now with all the things going to get subsidized further, and there's going to be a better speed with 5G. So what do I need? I mean, I just can play those 500 games and live happily there. At the same time, Namrata, you might see this differently, because a lot of these esports guys are also worried about another thing on the mobile, that's latency, right? And if the processing happens on the cloud and you're just getting the stream, it sort of evens out the playing field in terms of latency, in terms of all the glitches in the leaderboard that esports throw up when you have a cloud hardware from that point of view. So different people playing different games look at it differently, right?
No, definitely, right. But again, I think if you're looking at the mass of the Indian market, I think it would be what Pawan was referring to, which is about saying how do you give the gamers that have a 10, 12K rupee smartphone the best experience possible. And I think we have all the amenities to do that. I think also on the esports front, the next jump is going to be about saying how do you bring in multitude of users to come and experience it, because I think today there is a bit of niche around it, saying I can only get into streaming if I have all of these other pieces aligned, and probably needs a bit of investment for me to get into this. But I think that is the hurdle we will need to overcome if it really needs to become something that's mass and something that can be open for all, right? Of course, I think participating in tournaments, really getting recognition, that's happening with the larger groups today, but streaming is still with a much smaller subset owing to some of the other challenges. But I think the way to push on that probably in the shorter term could be the solves that Nitin and you were referring to, which is about enabling things through cloud gaming. But I think in the longer run, it has to be about how do we give that optimized experience so that all of this could just simply happen on a mobile phone, right? So that it just makes it much easier for the larger masses to get onto that same bandwagon.
Right. Pawan, were you going to say something?
Yeah, but I'll just park my thoughts.
Okay, no worries, but I'm also waiting for the day, Namrata.
We should also split esports into mobile esports and PC esports, right? I think because there is a very different need, a very different requirement. That the second thing is an esports guy does not really crave for variety or a pack of 500 games or, like a subscription that can allow them to play multitude of games. They have to play just one particular game for years, right? And just to be honest, we work very, very exclusively with a lot of game streamers, right? If you talk about Mortal Scout, a bunch of others, these guys are literally our distribution partners, and they are the best players in mobile esports, representing India at different levels. So I think, so the way they look at it is basically, my understanding is basis, our interactions with them.
Correct. And you're absolutely right, Pawan. And they're worried about what's the game that I can play and how can I stream that, gain viewers, and also how do I make monetization out of that? And that is going to be the pivotal thing that happens there. Now, just going along on some of the challenges, I think we've got 10 minutes to close. while we are doing some of this, there are also other innovations happening. For example, in the interactive gaming world, for example, one of the things, even when we saw one of the telcos launched, and they gave us a challenge of getting 5 million downloads, in a month or two. Some of us got them connected with Kaun Banega Crorepati, and there was a game developed. So the audience can basically answer the questions as the show is going on, and it vanishes 2 seconds before the contestant answers on the studio.
KBC Play Along.
KBC Play Along. And then that, sort of created a record, 30 million guys playing in 6 episodes flat, which we enabled. And then there was the IPL Play Along, which did about 101 million guys in 1 month flat. These are small interactive games where you play along, watching a TV or the mobile phone from that point of view. But what that did is 2 things very significantly. It got the elder people, the family, everybody playing along. And the other part is they share a net amount of data, everything from their Aadhaar cards to alternate phone numbers to all of that, because they want to receive the prize. So it really deepened the data engagement with the consumer and also gave mass consumer acquisition, which otherwise would cost $3 to $8 and a lot of marketing to acquire. Suddenly in a month, you had 100 million guys coming onto a platform, right? Some of those kind of innovations, how do you see that, and how do you see interactive games at all going ahead? Pawan, any thoughts there?
So I think this definitely, I think as an audience, I still remember, I'm sure all of us do. I mean, when we were kids, people used to be like, you have to SMS the correct answer. TV used to flash that SMS the correct option on 656565, those kind of things. So I don't see, I think, of course, so if you talk about the inherent need to, hey, I know it, I want fame or I want prize. And of course, I think then as a family, people used to answer the correct, give the correct answer and then apply that. I think that's definitely, I think that's again, right, that's a part of social. I would personally call it social, right? I think that is a template which has always been there, because that's setting at a very humanitarian level, right? Man is a social need with those kind of recognitions required there. So innovation on that front is definitely going to be a very powerful way to unlock engagement for sure, right? And now that instead of SMS, now people are actually launching the app and playing along with the celeb. At some point, this can happen through VR going forward, or AR, where people are actually, having that experience. Let's say, use the some of the catchwords like metaverse here, where people can literally actually, feel that with their family, they are probably sitting in a stadium and watching the live IPL match, with their VR headset on and doing all kinds of, quizzing or playing games together. So I think that is definitely going to be the direction that this entire trend is going to take.
Right. So I think we've been going a lot on the positive note on few things which are slightly still holding back what could be a real mega growth. A lot of concerns on the challenges side. Maybe I'll bring out a couple of them. Regulations, Namrata, not being even, is being sporadic. How do you see the regulatory environment sort of spoiling sport here?
No, I think definitely not having very clear singular regulatory framework, and I think sort of left to diverse interpretations across the country is definitely something that's a challenge. And I think in countries like US, which have seen that tremendous growth, I think there's a lot of clarity on what is in, what's allowed, what's not, etc. Right? So I think in order to just say how do you push this gaming growth forward in India as well, I think just having that clear singular regulatory framework, just very clearly defining some of these pieces could go a long way in ensuring, I think, further investments, further growth, just making gaming more mainstream and ensuring a lot more people would want to get into this as players, viewers, spectators, as people picking up jobs in this industry, right? So I think for this entire ecosystem, just having that clarity, right? Whatever be that regulation or framework that we adhere to, but having that clarity on saying this is the one thing that everybody will sort of adhere to, I think that would go a long way in ensuring this growth actually sees the light of the day.
Sustains, yes, and sustains and grows,
Yeah.
which is very important. And that's why uniform regulation and a clear regulation, which is not sporadic, is going to be very, very important for this space.
Yeah.
The other big thing, Nitin, I mean, if you go slightly beyond, you're a publisher and really content matters. And what drives content is the talent, right? The development talent, the creative talent, especially if you're going to go beyond mobile and do some PC and console. And that's something, for eons, we have been seeing in India, the creative talent in the gaming space has been, we are good programmers, we do wonderfully all of that, but the creative talent on the gaming side has been lacking. How do you see that as a challenge? Do you see that evolving in the last few years, and going forward, how do you see that playing out?
Yeah, that challenge existed, I agree, right? So for a significant time, right? And there was some context actually about it as I was reading this BCG recent report, right? So which actually, I think very good highlight over there was like, so some of the international studios being present in India, which actually enabled those kind of experiences to the Indian developers, basically, and that's where there have been like a lot of offshoots coming out of those global publishers. Studio in the Indian market has been a positive evolution, which I would say happening across in the Indian developer ecosystem. It may take a little longer, I would say, in terms of for us to be in a position to develop that kind of quality titles which are on the console and the PC. And that's where we have seen like there's a lot of investment which has happened across on the platform side in India. And as you said, right, so on the softwares and everything, we are too good, right? And I think that's where the innovation on the platform side has generated a lot of interest, a lot of investment happening on that side. But if you look from the developer ecosystem platform, the investments in that particular space have been still significantly smaller contributions which have happened on that side. I think it's a matter of time when you have some, I think it's about one wonder which we need out of India, basically. Right. And I was having one conversation with somebody a while back. Right? So I was saying it possibly it could be about, right, so converting a hugely successful PC title and porting it for mobile, right? So from the global, and we have seen that success that the Tencent has achieved, right? So with the conversion that they have done for some of the great titles on the PC side and bringing it onto the mobile, which became huge success. Right? So if something of this sort can happen out here in India, which can become a global success, not just an Indian success, I think that would just catapult the industry to the next level.
Absolutely, absolutely, and that's where some of the other guys in the animation space have set up, global studios, and employ 22,000, 3,000, 4,000 people, and that's where the talent ecosystem grew. And we are waiting for some of those to happen in the non-mobile side of things. And mobile, we already have some good companies going out from that space. Now, we're coming to the last part, and I think we're going to probably wind up the session. But before that, we are supposed to be gazing into the future. So, guys, if we're going to meet again 2025 and really be looking into the future, talking about it, your closing comments, what is that we're going to be, what's going to play out in the next 5 years, and what is that we're going to be talking about? Pawan, your bets for 2025.
I think I mentioned right in the middle of the session as well, we'll clearly overtake India, China, US or China to be the #1 mobile gaming destination, not just in terms of downloads, but also in terms of revenues.
Okay.
Yes. The space should have, you can say, at least 5 decacons and more than 10 unicorns.
Fantastic.
And the most downloaded game and the most, I would say, top grossing title would both belong to some game developer who would be shipping it out of India.
Wow, I think 3 mega predictions, great ones, Pawan. We leading both in terms of number of gamers and also revenue. We already lead in terms of gamers, but the revenue part, the titles coming out of India, and obviously the entire ecosystem being monetized from a larger point of view from India. Great calls. Namrata, you go. What are your bets for 2024?
I think Pawan has sort of covered all the bigger pieces. Probably if I'm talking about the specific kind of content, especially for India, I think it is going to be about the games that bring back nostalgia, the games that really speak of India, right? And really bringing back those memories. And I think it's also going to be a diverse range of games that really appeal to all of the user bases, right? Because I think women as a gaming segment is really evolving. So it would be games that would really cut across age groups, gender, different classes that way, to really say how can you bring those nostalgia and memories back through some of those Indian titles.
Fantastic. So nostalgia, the kind of content that comes in and people relating to that, fantastic. That's great. Nitin, your take?
I continue to have my bet on the console, on the cloud gaming side, right? So which is what I strongly believe could be the next disruption. Should be the next disruption rather than could, right? So yes, and that's what we are betting for the coming next 3-4 years.
Fabulous. So I think India being the top gaming destination in terms of revenue, the top titles coming from here, and also games which nostalgic, cloud gaming subscription. There is so much in the future. I think if somebody is not already putting their money, and they should probably withdraw all their money from crypto and put it on gaming or do a gaming crypto. But that said, I do believe that gaming or digital, like Pawan alluded to, people working to earn money or earn money through games or through working in digital is probably going to make this one of the top employing sectors, although informal, by 2025, 2026 in this country, because all that augurs very well, whether you're just playing games or you're in the business of games. And which is why, Raki, you hit upon something which is absolutely a fabulous topic. Time is the only thing that is holding us back. But I think we had a great session. Thank you, guys. Thank you, Namrata. Thank you, Nitin.
There's one question.
Yeah, please. We'll take some audience questions.
Yeah. So the question is, do you think Facebook Meta would have any impact in the gaming industry?
Yes. Who wants to take that? I have my thoughts, but yes, Facebook and Meta, yes. Okay. Pawan?
I can maybe So I think definitely Facebook is the largest social media company in the world. I think Meta anyway is a space where there are a lot of people doing a lot of things, but at the end you need a basic baseline foundation, a boilerplate kind of a credible platform that can tie all those different elements that different organizations are doing. Of course, we all know Epic Games is doing something. There is several other platforms. Sandbox is doing something else. So definitely, I think Facebook going ahead and taking that one down, renaming that themselves is not just a very, very bold move, but I think it's going to be very, very instrumental in times to come.
Yeah. And even when you look at the metaverse, one is gamifying the metaverse, the other is playing games in the metaverse, and the other is socializing and sports in the metaverse. So all of those three are going to go into significant changes. Of course, it all depends on the kind of bandwidth and the kind of connectivity that will play out and what you're doing with that. Second Life has already shown what it can do with a few million guys, but how that plays out is going to be a completely new thing. Great. Any other questions, Raki? I'm also seeing that you're getting calls and questions, so I'm sure this session has been fantastically popular. There are people phoning a friend and beyond. Any other questions, Raki?
No, I mean, we are actually out of time. So we have to start the next session, which is also another exciting session.
Absolutely. But thanks a lot. Thanks for organizing this. And thanks, guys. Fabulous session.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us for this gaming panel. Mr. Raghav Anand, Ms. Namrata Swami, Mr. Pawan Nanda, and Mr. Nitin Goyal. It has been a wonderful session. Thank you so much.